certainly I hear a personal desire for leadership development, right? You talked about that, Marks and Spencer and so forth, and getting the opportunity to work with Tom Peters, which is phenomenal. And I recommend that book to anybody, and I'll put the reference in our show notes. Um, that really gives us some context. So now let's get into the discussion a bit more with a sort of foundational question. I think, what exactly does a leadership coach do, and how is that really kind of different from other roles like a mentor or a consultant, would you say?
What does a leadership coach do? Well, my mind goes to an article that was written, it's probably about 22 years ago. It was published in the Harvard Business Review, and it was called The Wild West of Executive Coaching. And it kind of painted this picture of leadership and executive coaching being all over the map. Um, what does a leadership coach do? And as I think about it, here we are in 2025, and I think it's not the wild, wild west of executive coaching. It's the wild, 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 wild west. It's gotten even more
A lot
complicated,
wilder.
confusing. But at its essence, I believe that leadership coaching is like holding up a behavioral mirror to
Mm.
create self-awareness for leaders so that they can see maybe where they're tripping themselves up, what their blind spots are, what their skills, talents, and passions are, that they can really lean into those. So creating that self-awareness through a behavioral mirror. The other thing that leadership coaches do, good leadership coaches, is build clarity. So
Mm.
having clarity, if a leader can't articulate where an organization is going, they're not going to mobilize people forward. And then the third thing is leadership coaches help the leader really figure out what action they need to take. If you think about leadership, it's an action-based activity.
Mhm.
Leaders take action. Great leaders take bold action, and that takes courage. So it's nudging, coaching, cajoling, holding people accountable to actually take those brave actions. That's kind
Yeah,
of my potted definition of what a leadership coach does.
this idea of holding up the mirror, I think a lot of times people think a coach is supposed to give them the answers, right? And that's not it at all. Most coaches, we have a metaphor that we will share with the people that we're going to coach or whatever. And the one that I have developed is the key ring. So a lot of times people will be familiar with someone, often a janitorial type person or maintenance person, right, who has this gigantic keychain, ring on their hip, and it's got like, I don't know, a million keys on it, right? And the job of the coach is to come along and shine the flashlight so that the person reaches on their own hip and pulls the key they already have to unlock the lock that they're trying to get through, right? And so that's kind of how I do a lot of mentoring, which is kind of where that question came from. I do a lot of mentoring, I do coaching, and the two are different. And to try to provide that context, so that's a metaphor that I use that I've kind of developed over time.
You've
Uh,
just reminded me of something, and there's a great model out there, because if you have a group of managers and leaders and ask them, how many of you know how to coach? They'll all put up their hand and say, "Yeah, I'm a great coach. I'm a great coach." Why are you a great coach? Because I tell other people what to do. Coaching is not telling other people what to do. And the model I lean towards, and this is from a former business partner and coach, Greg Thompson, who I think
mhm.
wrote a book called The Master Coach. And in that book,
Another good book.
yeah, great book. He has a model, and it's called the coaching impact model, and it really breaks it down. When you're directing, when you're advising, when you're teaching, when you're mentoring and coaching, and it's kind of a delineation. And actually, pictorially, you can see where you are. It's like a coach meter. Am I directing, or am I coaching?
Yeah,
And you're a physician. There's times to direct or be directive. So if you're the surgeon in surgery and you
yeah,
say scalpel, that's
right,
directive. You need that
right,
scalpel. But if you're in a different situation, there's a time to be more coach like when you
yeah,
start asking the team, What do you think? Help me think this through. What are your
right.
thoughts? Has anybody done this before?" And you tap into the wisdom of the team. That's coaching.